Hello, everyone. Welcome to Avenue of Words. Today, I have a powerful story about courage, determination, and breaking free from golden handcuffs. Imagine being born with everything money can buy: luxurious mansions, exotic cars, designer clothes, but feeling completely empty inside. What would you do if the life everyone envies is the very life suffocating your dreams? Today, we follow the remarkable journey of Miguel Alvarez, a young man from Barcelona who abandoned his family's billion-dollar empire to pursue his passion in a foreign land. This story will inspire you to follow your heart, no matter how difficult the path may seem. Stay with us until the end, because this story contains powerful lessons about perseverance and the courage to choose your own path. You'll also discover proven techniques that helped Miguel become fluent in English in record time, methods you can apply to your own language learning journey. Hello, my name is Miguel Alvarez. I'm 28 years old and I come from Barcelona, Spain. If you looked at my life from the outside, you would think I had won the lottery of birth. My family owns one of the largest real estate development companies in Europe. We have properties in Madrid, Paris, London, and Dubai. My childhood home was a 15-bedroom estate overlooking the Mediterranean Sea. I had 3 personal assistants who catered to my every whim. My 18th birthday gift was a custom Lamborghini. For my university graduation, my father bought me a yacht. But behind the facade of luxury and privilege, I felt trapped. Since before I could remember, my parents had planned every aspect of my future. "Miguel," my father would say, "you have a responsibility to continue our legacy. The Alvarez name means something in this world." They sent me to elite private schools, then to Europe's most prestigious business university. My path was clear. I would join the family business, marry someone from our social circle, and eventually take over the empire my grandfather had built. But I had a different dream burning inside me. I wanted to become an immigration lawyer, not for the money or prestige, but to help people start new lives in new countries, people seeking better opportunities, just as my grandparents once did before building their fortune. My friends couldn't understand. "Miguel, are you crazy? Why would you give up billions to work for a fraction of what you already have?" Even my girlfriend at the time, the daughter of another wealthy family, laughed when I told her. "That's so sweet, Miguel. You always had such a big heart. But let's be realistic about your future." The defining moment came during my father's 60th birthday celebration. We were hosting a lavish party at our estate. Hundreds of Europe's elite were there: politicians, celebrities, business tycoons. During dinner, my father stood up and announced to everyone, "Next month, Miguel will officially join Alvarez International as Executive Vice President. In 5 years, he will take my place as CEO." The room erupted in applause. Everyone was looking at me, smiling, nodding in approval. But inside, I felt like I was drowning. That night, I couldn't sleep. I paced on my balcony overlooking the sea, asking myself the same question over and over. Is this really my life? Or am I just living someone else's dream? The next morning, I went for a walk through the old district of Barcelona. I found myself sitting at a small cafe, watching locals and tourists pass by. An elderly woman sat down at the table next to mine. She had kind eyes and a weathered face that spoke of a life fully lived. She noticed me staring blankly at my untouched coffee. "Young man," she said in Catalan, "you look like you're carrying the weight of the world on your shoulders." Something about her grandmotherly presence made me open up. I told her everything: the family expectations, my secret dream, my fear of disappointing everyone I loved. She listened quietly, then said something I'll never forget. "The saddest thing in life is not failing at your dreams. It's succeeding at someone else's. No one on their deathbed ever wished they had lived less authentically." Her words struck me like lightning. In that moment, everything became clear. I went home, sat at my desk, and wrote a letter to my parents. I explained that I loved them deeply, but I needed to find my own path. I couldn't live a life designed by someone else, even if it came with all the comforts in the world. I withdrew $100,000 from my personal account, a significant amount, but a fraction of what I was accustomed to. I packed 2 suitcases with essentials and booked a one-way ticket to Sydney, Australia. Why Australia? Because it represented everything opposite to my life in Spain. It was far away, had a completely different culture, and most importantly, it had one of the best immigration law programs in the world. If I was going to reinvent myself, I needed to be somewhere where nobody knew the Alvarez name. I left the letter on my father's desk alongside my credit cards, car keys, and the Rolex he had given me when I turned 21. Then I slipped out of the house before dawn and headed to the airport. As the plane took off, I looked down at the sparkling lights of Barcelona growing smaller and smaller. A mix of terror and exhilaration washed over me. For the first time in my life, my future was unwritten. The plane landed at Sydney Airport after a grueling 22-hour journey. The moment I stepped outside, the Australian summer heat hit me like a wall. It was December. While winter was settling over Spain, here people were in shorts and t-shirts, enjoying the sunshine. Everything felt alien. The accents, the atmosphere, even the air smelled different. Eucalyptus and sea salt instead of the Mediterranean herbs I was accustomed to. I had booked a modest studio apartment in Surrey Hills, a trendy inner-city suburb. When the taxi dropped me off, I stood in front of the building with my 2 suitcases, reality finally sinking in. My apartment was on the 3rd floor, a small studio with a kitchenette, a bathroom, and a balcony barely big enough for a chair. The entire place could fit in the walk-in closet of my bedroom back in Barcelona. I sat on the bed, a far cry from my custom Italian king-size mattress, and for a moment, panic gripped me. What had I done? Had I made the biggest mistake of my life? Then I remembered the old woman's words at the cafe, and I steeled myself. This was my journey now. The first challenge hit me immediately. My English was mediocre at best. I had studied it in school and could read and write decently, but speaking fluently was a different matter entirely. At a cafe the next morning, I tried ordering breakfast. "Could I have the avocado toast, please?" I asked slowly. "Sure thing, mate. Want that with poached, fried, or scrambled?" The barista replied rapidly. I blinked, completely lost. "Sorry? Your eggs. How do you want them?" Poached, please," I guessed, not entirely sure what I was agreeing to. When my food arrived, I was relieved to see I'd ordered correctly, but the interaction left me shaken. If I couldn't handle ordering breakfast, how would I manage law school in English? That night, I created a rigorous plan to master English. First, total immersion. I promised myself no Spanish media, no Spanish news, no Spanish movies, no Spanish music. Everything I consumed would be in English. Second, I enrolled in an intensive English course designed for academic purposes, 4 hours daily, 5 days a week. Third, I started the shadow method. I would listen to Australian news podcasts and repeat exactly what the speakers said, matching their pronunciation, intonation, and rhythm. Fourth, I began keeping a journal in English, writing down new words and phrases I encountered each day. Fifth, I forced myself to speak to at least 3 new people every day. Baristas, shopkeepers, neighbors, anyone. The first month was exhausting. My brain felt like it was on fire by the end of each day. But slowly, I began to notice changes. After 2 months, I could hold basic conversations without struggling. After 4 months, I could understand most of what people said to me. After 6 months, I began dreaming in English. But learning the language was only part of the challenge. My savings were dwindling fast. Sydney was one of the most expensive cities in the world, and without an income, I would soon be in trouble. I needed a job, but what could I do? I had never worked a day in my life. My CV was blank except for my business degree. I started applying everywhere: cafes, restaurants, retail stores. Most never called back. Those who did interview me could sense my inexperience immediately. Finally, after 3 weeks of rejections, a small Italian restaurant in Newtown took a chance on me. The owner, Giuseppe, was from Naples and felt a connection to another European trying to make it in Australia. "You'll start as a busboy," he said. "If you work hard, maybe you become waiter later." Me, Miguel Alvarez, heir to a billion-dollar empire, clearing dirty dishes for minimum wage. If my father could see me now. My first shift was a disaster. I dropped a stack of plates, mixed up orders, and got yelled at by both the chef and senior waitstaff. I went home that night with aching feet, smelling of garlic and sweat, questioning every life choice I'd made. But I returned the next day, and the day after that. Each shift got a little easier. After a month, I was promoted to waiter. The job became my second language school. I had to understand different accents, slang, food terminology, and handle complaints, all in rapid-fire English. After work, I would study law books. I had applied to the University of Sydney's law program and been conditionally accepted, pending an English proficiency exam. Every night, no matter how exhausted I was from my shift, I would read legal texts for at least 2 hours. 9 months after arriving in Australia, I passed my English exam with flying colors and was officially accepted into law school. I felt like I'd conquered my first mountain, but the real challenge was just beginning. On my first day at university, I sat in a large lecture hall surrounded by students who had grown up speaking English, who understood the Australian legal system, who didn't have to translate concepts in their heads before understanding them. The professor began, "Today we'll be discussing the intersection of common law principles and statutory interpretation in the context of administrative decision-making." My heart sank. I understood each word individually, but strung together at that speed, with that legal context. I was lost. I looked around at other students taking notes confidently, nodding along. For the first time since leaving Spain, I questioned if I had aimed too high. That evening, sitting in my small apartment, I had a choice to make: give up and go home to my comfortable life, or dig deeper and work harder than I ever had before. I chose the latter. I developed a new strategy. First, I would record every lecture and listen to it 3 times. Once at normal speed, once at 0.75 speed to catch details, and once at 1.25 speed to challenge my comprehension. Second, I would read each assigned text twice, once for basic understanding, once for deeper analysis. Third, I joined study groups with native English speakers, forcing myself to participate even when I felt intimidated. Fourth, I found a retired immigration lawyer who needed help with Spanish translations for his clients. In exchange, he became my mentor, explaining concepts I struggled with and giving me insights into Australian immigration law. Fifth, I cut my restaurant hours to part-time, living on rice, beans, and discount vegetables to stretch my dwindling savings. The first year of law school was the hardest of my life. There were nights I cried from exhaustion, days I considered booking a flight back to Barcelona. My father had sent several emails, first angry, then concerned, finally resigned but leaving the door open for my return. "The company will always be here for you," he wrote. "So will your family." The temptation to give up was strongest during exam period. I was studying 16 hours a day, sleeping barely 4 hours a night. My apartment was covered in sticky notes with legal terminology. I had lost weight, had permanent dark circles under my eyes. But then came the results. I had passed all my exams with distinctions in 2 subjects. Not only had I survived, but I was excelling. That small victory gave me the strength to continue. By my 3rd year of law school, I had found my rhythm. I was now working at a small immigration law firm as a paralegal, my first real step into the field. My English was nearly flawless, with only a slight accent that clients often found charming. During my final year, I took on refugee cases through the university's legal aid program. I helped families navigate the complex immigration system, translated for Spanish-speaking asylum seekers, and wrote briefs that actually made a difference in people's lives. One case particularly moved me: a family from Venezuela who had fled political persecution. When their residency was approved, the mother hugged me with tears in her eyes and said, "You gave us a new life." In that moment, I knew with absolute certainty that I had made the right choice. No amount of luxury or wealth could match the fulfillment I felt. 4 years after arriving in Australia as a privileged, sheltered young man who could barely order breakfast in English, I graduated with honors from one of the country's top law programs. As I stood in my graduation gown, no family in the audience to cheer for me, I felt a profound sense of accomplishment. This achievement was entirely mine, earned through sweat, tears, and sheer determination. I was offered a position at a prestigious immigration law firm in Sydney, specializing in humanitarian cases. My starting salary was less than what I used to spend on a weekend in Ibiza. And yet, I had never felt richer. 6 years have passed since I left Barcelona. I now run my own small immigration practice, focusing on helping refugees and asylum seekers. I live in a modest apartment in Bondi Beach, drive a second-hand car, and have found community among friends who value me for who I am, not for my family name. Last year, something unexpected happened. My father came to visit. He arrived without warning, appearing at my office door one Tuesday afternoon. He looked older, more vulnerable than I remembered. We sat at a cafe overlooking the harbor, years of unspoken words between us. "I came to see this life you chose over ours," he said finally. I showed him my small office, introduced him to my colleagues and some clients. He listened as I explained cases I was working on, watched as people greeted me with genuine respect. Not the deference his money commanded, but true appreciation for my work. That evening, as we watched the sunset from my balcony, he said something I never expected to hear. "I was wrong, Miguel. I wanted to give you everything, but I never asked what you actually wanted." He didn't fully understand my choices, but he had come to respect them. Before leaving, he hugged me and said, "Your grandfather would be proud. He built something from nothing, just like you're doing now." My story isn't about rejecting privilege or family. It's about having the courage to listen to your inner voice, even when everyone else thinks you're making a mistake. If you have a dream that others don't understand, remember, no one can live your life for you. Not your parents, not your friends, not society. The path to fulfillment isn't always the path of least resistance. Sometimes it requires leaving behind everything familiar and comfortable. Every time you choose courage over comfort, you grow stronger. Every challenge you overcome builds resilience you didn't know you had. Your dream is your responsibility. No one will fight for it except you. I was once a privileged heir who had never faced real adversity. I became a lawyer who helps others find their new beginnings. The journey was harder than anything I could have imagined, but I would choose it again in a heartbeat. So if you're standing at a crossroads, afraid to take that first step toward your true calling, remember my story. Remember that on the other side of fear is freedom. On the other side of the familiar is fulfillment. Don't wait for permission. Don't wait for understanding. Don't wait for the perfect moment. Your dream is waiting, and the world needs the authentic, courageous you, not the version of yourself that played it safe. So what will your story be? Thank you for listening to Miguel's inspirational journey. If you enjoyed this story, please like this video and subscribe to Avenue of Words for more powerful stories of transformation and language learning. In the comments below, tell us, what dream are you pursuing despite the obstacles? Your story could inspire someone else to take that first brave step. Until next time, remember, the most meaningful journeys begin with the courage to walk your own path.